the LebNet Bay Area panel on leadership in supply chain and operations. I'm Gibran, and I lead the local chapter for LebNet. There are about 15 chapters across 15 cities in North America, Canada, and the US. And we're about to launch our first overseas branch in London, where we have a lot of interest. Sometime this summer, there'll be a chapter in London where about 150, 200 people have expressed an interest in coming together. We have about 5,000 members, and the goal is to bring the diaspora folks together on topics that connect us in tech and neighboring disciplines so that we can nurture and support each other. For the first half of this year, we've had a series of events. I'm going to try to see how these slides pan out. This is the local area chapter club. I'm Gibran, and there's Murad, whom you see in the crowds. Others couldn't come. We've had a series of events so far. In February, we had a webinar about talent acquisition in Lebanon and how you could outsource and get help there from experienced people who've done it. In March, we had a panel about shaping the future with AI and innovation. It was very well received. We're doing this panel right now, and coming up in June, we have a pitch night event for about 20 startups. We're jointly hosting this event with a sister organization called Life, which is really legal and financial professionals, and we're the tech professionals. In addition to the three panelists here, we have a lot of these events. We've had a lot of things. We featured at the North America Technology Conference in March at AUB. There were 3 out of the 6 panels that they had were peppered with members of LebNet and people in our committee. So we're very active. With a goal of sharing information, nurturing. We have many programs you're familiar with, internships, job placement, supporting entrepreneurs, and so on. So please come more to the events and give us your support. One thing you may have been bombarded with, first I want to thank Paul, who left. He couldn't stay here, for hosting us at Shepherd Mullen. Paul is part of our community, and he's a partner here. He's offered this wonderful space for us multiple times. One of the things that's been bombarding us all in the last few days, and for the right cause, is this campaign we embarked upon in the board called Your Turn Lebanon, to try to raise $10 million for 10 charities in Lebanon over 10 days. We put a stretch goal for ourselves, and it's driven some people crazy how hard they're working. Although this is supposed to be volunteer, we're working more than we're working on our jobs. But it's a good cause. So we're extending this campaign to allow the momentum we have built, the connections, the virality to take effect. So please do your part if you can. Donate, but also spread the word to your network. The goal here is to reach as many people. All the money goes straight to the 10 charities we have in Lebanon. Nothing, LebNet has just created a platform that enables all of this. I'm very proud of this effort because it's not just people on the board like Ghada and myself and Manneh, but a lot of young people who are helping us from Brazil, from Saudi Arabia, from Lebanon, pro bono. They're doing the website, they're doing the logos, they're reaching out to influencers, people we don't know how to connect with at our age group. Has endorsement from people like Bella Hadid, soon Ro Khanna, soon Steve Kerr. Good people talking about the importance of this campaign. Before I leave, just the bathrooms are out there to the left. We're going to go for about 40 minutes. Raja said he prefers having an open interaction. So if you want to have a question, I'll pass on a mic so that we can hear you in the recording. And I'll go from there. So without further ado, introduce Raja, who's a PhD from Berkeley in operations research. He's had a very illustrious career, worked at NetApp, several other companies, and currently consulting and scratching his head thinking about what he wants to do next, go solo or work for the man. So I'll turn it over to your trusted hands. Please take it away.
Thank you, Gibran. And thank you all for joining us this evening. I'd like to introduce actually our 3 guests. So I'll start with Juneyt Kayali. He's a senior director at NetApp for business operations and strategy. Part of his responsibility is to actually run sales and operation planning process, which means he's the guy who actually determines how much his supply chain team builds in terms of volume and mix. Before that, he was a management consultant, and then had different roles in operations analytics in various companies. He's a graduate with an MBA from Middlebury College, and then from Marmara University, a marketing degree. You may be asking yourself, why is a Turkish gentleman joining us today at the LebNet event? But he's fully Lebanese through his marriage, actually.
I am other Lebanese, and to prove that, I brought my sister-in-law Natalie here with me.
I can vouch.
If I could ask the people to speak closer to the microphone, we can hear you, but the voice doesn't get you. Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Raja is too shy.
And then next is Hala Jalwan. So Hala Jalwan is co-founder and CEO of Rivio. It's a startup based in San Francisco that basically is developing AI power models for supply chain and procurement. Before that, she has an illustrious career in high-tech giants, including most recently Apple, before that Google and Meta. She has a master's degree in supply chain engineering from MIT, and then a bachelor's from civil engineering, very different field, from the American University of Beirut. And fun fact about Hala, she was a volunteer for many years at the Lebanese Red Cross, which means that she put herself in harm's way again and again. So this is not only a very smart woman, but also super courageous. And then
because of this event that Gibran was saying, I donated to the Lebanese Red Cross.
And then our third panel participant is Marwan Manneh. Marwan is a program manager for refurbishing the Mac at Apple. So that means he's running the supply chain that does the refurbishing and the recycling. Before that, he had long experience in different semiconductor companies, including fabless companies. But interestingly, he also worked actually around manufacturing inside the manufacturing fab in the US. That's not an experience that many people have, because most fabs nowadays are in East Asia. Having a gentleman who actually have first-hand experience running fabs.
The best place in the US, Newport Beach.
Oh,
Newport Beach, right next to Fashion Island. Lovely.
And he holds an MBA from Pepperdine University and a bachelor's in industrial engineering from Cal Poly. So with that, I'm gonna basically.
I will add one fun fact about Raja. The reason why I'm in the US is because I had a call with Raja when I was working in Qatar as a civil engineer. So my mom put me in contact with him, and then he gave me two advice in life. The first one was to do a master's. This is how I went to MIT. And the second one is he referred me to Facebook, and this is how I got into Facebook.
wow.
Me to where I was.
Thank you, Hala. So supply chain is the topic of the day. I think if you look at it, it's been a major topic, particularly the area of supply chain and supply chain constraints. We'll be talking about that today. So during the pandemic era, supply chain constraints were a key topic at the mind of many people. Right now, with the Strait of Hormuz closure, many references to supply chain impacting energy supply, including things like agriculture and helium, for example, for semiconductor. So a lot of what we'll be talking about is actually how do you create put together a secure supply chain that's agile and also resilient. So we'll be talking about that quite a bit. The other key aspect of supply chain that plays two ways is artificial intelligence. So when you look at artificial intelligence, one of the key constraints in artificial intelligence is supply chain right now. So you have shortages of different material, including memory chips and so on, that are impacting AI. But AI is also a key tool for supply chain, for managing supply chain. And we'll be talking about both aspects of AI, both in terms of the constraints, but also how do we leverage AI models. And then the third topic is going to be around basically recycling. Supply chains have gone global. And by gone global, they've scaled significantly. And they've often been accused of being very disruptive in terms of global warming and environmental impact. So the ability to recycle and refurbish product is a key aspect of addressing these issues. And we'll be talking about that as well. So my first question is going to be on to Juneyt, but I'm going to ask the participant and yourself to feel free to chime in as well. So how are the current supply chain constraints, Juneyt, different from when we were running into the COVID era? And how are you reacting to it and responding to it? Especially that the development cycle for new products can be 2 to 3 years, right? So if you want to change a product, you can't just go in and make a quick change. You have to work with the engineering team to basically update the product. How are you managing that?
So when you think about the COVID time, if you think about the experience, it's shutdowns, right? People getting sick, office and the ports are closed, and you cannot find the containers, right? And there was this chaotic environment. There was a pure chaos, and people were essentially buying whatever they could find. I had one experience during that time. I went to Home Depot, and Home Depot was like a Mad Max movie scene. There was nothing, things were on the floor, but there was nothing on the shelves, right? That was a very chaotic environment. And people at that time, I think, they moved from just in time. They decided to move from just in time to just in case. Oh, let's put in the stockpile. Do you guys remember toilet paper? Exactly.
Can't find it.
Exactly. Yes, it was the most valuable item at that time, right? So it was like everything was short supply. I think today, if you look at 2026, it's a bit different. It's more structural. It's more geopolitical, right? If you think about geopolitical reasons because of China and what have you, right? Today's environment, the constraints are more segmented, more in the semiconductor industry. We have some people from NVIDIA here, right? so semiconductor industry, in the memory market, in the PC market, and that's because of the huge AI investments, right? When you look at the companies, they are moving permanently from this just in time to just in case. Because one of the things that changed with COVID is, before COVID, the inventory turns was a key metric for a lot of companies. I don't know if anyone is talking about the inventory turns. As a matter of fact, our CFO is LebNet Bay Area. One thing that Wissam said in one of our meetings was kind of interesting. That before, it was all about the cash flow, like, hey, what can we do? Let's make sure that we're not necessarily keeping a lot of inventory. One thing he said is that let's make sure that we get the inventory, because now analysts are asking if we have enough inventory to support the revenue. And that's a major change from, hey, how can we change the inventory turns and things like that. So definitely you're seeing that. Now, when it comes to how we manage the same environment in the B2B environment, because we have development cycle 2.5 years. One of the great learnings I think we had, and I serve with the best minds like Raja, right? We learned a lot from that COVID experience. And one of the things we learned is that, you really need to understand your product, because we had incidents where a 6-sense IC TI chip basically stopped us from shipping a $500,000 system. We're like, what is this? What, 6-sense? Like, how can we find it, right? So now understanding what is really a part of your product, making sure that you do we call that BOM, so bill of materials scoring, health scoring, so that you can understand if those components have a big supply base, so that you are not relying on 1 or 2 suppliers somewhere in Asia and they may be impacted, right? Definitely multi-sourcing, that's important. Managing that and getting that into the design. So one of the things that we changed is that after that learning, we started this phase reviews, and at the phase reviews, as we're developing products, we look at the components and we grade them to make sure that if we have some components that are short supply, they're going to end of life. We also build a new product life cycle so that by the time we go to market, some of these components are not already obsolete. So, those are kind of the things that we are implementing. And also the other important thing here is simplification. One thing we learned during that time is that the more complex your portfolio is, the harder you'll find yourself in a situation where you have to chase these materials, a lot of different materials. So that's how we're kind of managing it.
Okay. Thank you, Juneyt. Hala, Marwan, anything you want to add?
You didn't leave anything for me. Doesn't even have a microphone. But now I'm okay.
So Hala,
Very thorough. Good insight.
So AI is a major trend right now, and I know almost every function in the world, from finance to legal, etc., trying to use it. What are some applications of AI in supply chain or procurement that you think can make the difference and enable supply chains to be more efficient or more resilient as well?
So I can share a little bit more about what we do as a company, and I can also explain a little more broadly. So at Rivio, we built an agent called Sheldon, if anyone is fan of the Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
So Sheldon is, think of it as your AI procurement team. So it will act in the same way that you would expect a team of 50 or 100 people to do the work. And the simplest application, the way to think about it, is if you were to offshore work to an offshore team or to BPO, a business process outsourcing. Now companies are taking this part of the work and then giving it to Sheldon. And it's automating sourcing completely. And usually it's for the non-strategic spend. So at this point, like Sheldon is able to understand what you need to buy, negotiate with the supplier, go back and forth. It will go back internally if it needs to get unblocked. It will create internally the purchase request and then the purchase order. So it will take any standard operating procedure that a company has, and it will be able to do every single step in the same way you expect a team of 100 people to do this type of work.
Interesting.
So it's a completely new way of thinking, not about a system of record, but of thinking about how can I do work in a scalable way where traditionally I needed human people to do it. And now I can do it through an AI employee. And we call Sheldon an AI employee, very specialized in one specific area, which is procurement. And like the same way, every single team in a company will have their AI employee. So sales have their AI employee, recruiting will have their AI employee. If you think about supply chain, there's a lot of like manual step that needs to happen. Usually one of the key one is around logistics. So how can I automate like my logistics? It could be around freight, where you need to call truckers to make sure that they are working on it. And like this has been like one key use case. Another one has been just following up on a purchase order. Like, where is my order? Do I need to follow up? Do I need to call the supplier to confirm? But the rule of thumb is if there are some standard process in the company that are not linear. So it's not like input A, do this, input B. It's very complex where it requires some judgment in it. At this point in time, anything that is operation, like procurement operation, supply chain operation, will little by little be handed over to an AI employee. And there will be inside your company a manager of this employee. So whoever was procurement ops before will become the manager of the employee and will be fine-tuning the agent in order to work within your processes. And what I'm sharing is not like in 5 years it's going to happen. It's already happening today. So for us, like we have company where we work with them. They show us this is the scope of work that this team in India is handling. And we start little by little, process by process of transferring this work to Sheldon. And the same will happen to every single role in the company. And not all the companies are doing it. If you're innovative, you're doing it. And if not, you're going to see your competitor operating faster in a more scalable way and cheaper, and then everyone is going to follow.
So, Hala, does the system handle pricing too? Because one key aspect of procurement is getting a good deal.
Yeah.
How is that managed by the AI?
So like right now, what we did as a company, we're a 2-year-old company. So what we ended up doing is we bought a lot of data. So we bought a lot of data on pricing, and think of it as the guardrail of the agent. If you want to let your agent go and then negotiate with the vendor, it needs to know what's the minimum, what's the maximum, and what's a good price in order to look at this information. Most of that is not available publicly. So usually what we do is we go category by category. We started with simple category between brackets, so software, professional service, contingent labor. We bought a bunch of data, and now the agent is able to know I'm going to hire a consultant in Austin to help me with that project. This is the amount of work. This is what should be the hourly rate. And without that, the agent will take the information that's publicly available, which is not like always accurate. So this has been like one key aspect. We're building our own kind of pricing intelligence over time. And then for each company, the agent will look at historically what you bought, and it has infinite memory. So I call it a procurement twin of the organization. It is your forever employee that will remember everything that you have ever bought at any time and why you decided to buy it. So there is some internal asset that you build in that's continuous learning that you need to invest in your employee, that even if all your team decided to leave tomorrow, you're still in a good shape because you can hire a full new team and they will be able to continue from where the rest of the team left off.
Thank you, Hala. Circular supply chain is one of the more obscure aspects of supply chains. It's been driven, Marwan, sometimes by EU regulations, sometimes by the goodwill of companies trying to do the right thing from an environmental perspective. Can you tell us what it is really and why it's important?
Can someone help me answer? So reverse supply chain, or what we do refurbishment, is essentially the process of customer returning a product, repairing it, recycling it, and also reselling it. So I'll give you an example. You bought a computer, you decided to return it within 14 days. Instead of throwing that computer in the trash, or like Apple can't just, the company cannot just take the computer and just put it back on the shelf. So it goes through an extensive process, just like as if you're rebuilding the computer from scratch. It goes back to the factory, it goes through full cosmetic screening, full functional screening, and it's the same process as if you're buying a brand new computer. Why it's important? I mean, think about it. We're reusing the same material. We're reusing the same chips. You're minimizing waste. You're meeting regulatory compliance in some countries where you need to have a repair strategy or refurbishment to be able to sell products in that country. And also cost recovery. So instead of if a customer returns a product that's $2,000, instead of us having to throw it away, or we try to maximize our cost recovery.
And that's even for the standard 14-day return policy that you guys have. You have to go through that process.
We do.
Wow.
We do. Yes, we do. Yeah.
In Lebanon, they just put it all back together.
Yeah. No, even
we just had it for 14 days.
So speaking of the 14 days policy, like it's you would think they won't be damaged.
Yeah, I mean,
you would think it's almost brand new
because I've returned 14-day products from Apple. And
yeah,
it's like it's really brand new.
Yes, it is. But actually, 40% of those returns actually have to. Sometimes we change the screens, we change the keyboard because customer had some scratch, or even you have to control the logistics. You have to control from the time a customer returned. Maybe the customer did not induce any scratches on the product, but let's say the retail team or the authorized selling team who are accepting this product back. If, for example, the warehouse in the region, let's say in the US or in Europe and Australia, like I've had a lot of incidents from Australia where products are coming back without screws. So that and the way they are packaging the product that come back to the factory, because they're not packaging the product in the right standard procedures, it causes damages during that transportation. And so we end up having to spend a lot more money to recover, to do cost recovery there. And therefore, we also have to be mindful of the full supply chain from the time it gets returned to when we ship it back out.
Right.
So it's key to make sure that, like when you're scaling or when you're having new warehouses that are getting involved or new operators, we want to make sure that they are following the right procedure to ensure that, hey, this product is being packaged correctly and not just all dumped into a bin and sending back to the factory.
Got it.
Yeah.
What percentage of return?
It depends on the product. So Mac portable, roughly 2 to 3%, 2%. Yeah. 2 to 3%. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Thank you, Marwan. So Juneyt was talking earlier about how his CFO is coming in and asking to have enough inventory. My experience at that same CFO, when the business cycle goes the other way, and I tell him we have too much inventory. Why did you get that? Why did you get us at that point? Even though he's the same person or she's the same person who asked for it just 6 months ago. So how do you manage through business cycles and manage to remain sane, but also make the right decisions and try to guess where you are in the business cycle?
So definitely you see these ups and downs, and depending on where you are, the reactions are very different. To Roger's point, when the prices are going up. The criticism you get is that why didn't you buy enough? I told you so. Like you should have bought this like 4 months ago. And in 6 months, when it starts coming down, like why do we have this excess?
Hedging.
So exactly. So I've been forecasting. I'm never right. So there's always someone second guessing. So I think, in this environment, the best thing is to be able to, a couple of things. Number one, really follow the overall market industry trends, understand, how the capacity and the demand shaping up. Right? For example, we're seeing that now, especially in the SSD semiconductor space. Right? So we've seen a huge uptick in the, let's say, the data center demand. But now, because of this huge price increase, I'm talking, when I say price increase, the SSD price went up by like 300, 400.
So maybe we should clarify. SSD is storage systems. These are like little drives.
Is your microphone on?
Is it?
No. Yeah, it is.
Is it?
It is.
You want to try this one?
You have to get it close to your mouth.
Yeah, you have to get it close.
You're saying a lot of good stuff.
But
Okay.
SSD is basically storage.
Now we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So yes. So SSDs are solid storage drives. They're based on memory, and memory is one of the most expensive thing right now because for AI infrastructure, the AI use a lot of memory. Right?
Don't look at me.
Can you hear me? I'm kidding. So what we're seeing is this huge price increase, right? And it's impacting everyone. And you basically also see that there are certain segments that can keep up with that. Like if you're Meta, if you're Google or Amazon, you can buy that. But if you're a consumer and all of a sudden your iPhone price goes up by 20, 30%, once like, okay, do I want to spend this right now? They're going to hold it back. So I think we are seeing some signs of weakness in the consumer space, which will probably make more supply available for the enterprise. So you may see some of that, right? But I think in this environment, the most important thing here is, how do you manage this? So it's not about the low cost anymore, right? It's all about managing the risk. And the companies move from cost leadership to optimizing the resilience, right? Before, hey, are we getting enough, cost? Do we have enough cost reductions? Nowadays, it's more about, okay, yeah, we may have the lowest cost, but do we have the supply to be able to ship? So now that's, optimizing resilience, building that risk management into the whole equation. Total value has become the real thing as opposed to cost leadership. Right.
Thank you, Juneyt. So, Hala, we talked earlier about AI. Many companies have implemented AI models, and this is actually one of the big questions around AI is, to what extent is it really going to scale up? You have a lot of pilots. Many companies have done successfully implemented pilots. But the question is, what does it take to scale it through the company's processes when you talk about companies that are global, multiple countries, multiple departments? So that scaling aspect of it, which is going to be key for the success of AI in general, right? Not just in supply chain, but other. What are some of the factors that allow you to be successful or come in the way of that scaling?
Is it working?
No.
I think just the mic.
We can share.
Yeah. So, like the first thing that I noticed, at least like from all the companies that you have been talking with, is I would say like at the leadership level, this has been like first a very big difference. When you have like, let's say, the chief procurement officer or like the CFO or like the head of sale that says that this is gonna be the key focus for the team, and then usually I saw two ways of doing it. First is you're not gonna get more headcount next year, so you have this year to figure out how to increase capacity with AI, and it's been. In 2025, people were just curious. In 2026, it's actually happening that in 2027, a lot of teams are not going to get headcount. So now we're seeing more serious team looking at solution. So the first thing is if the leadership understand, then we saw everyone in the company very seriously taking the pilot and understanding how will I work on this. On our side, if we talk to the wrong level in the company, if I talk to too low of a level, the first thing they will think is, am I going to lose my job? And this is one thing that we learned, that you have to go high up to the to the leader that is thinking about an organization structure and rethinking about how AI will help in like scaling up his team. And then the second thing is you cannot go from zero to hero. So at the end of the day, the technology is moving so fast that on our side, like as we're developing the product, we're amazed by how powerful this employee can be. But you need to start small. So usually what we do is and for any successful pilot, you start with a very small scope so that people truly understand what does it mean to work with AI. And once you see it on one use case, it could really push your imagination to really think about like all the other use cases, but people need to be open to it. And depending on who work on the technology, we notice there is very easily like one power user in the team that start educating the rest of the team on how to actually do the work. Yeah.
Okay. So I lead the AI implementations at NetApp right now for supply chain organizations. I'm focusing on more like, available to promise, inventory, and what have you. But I guess my question is, when I look at our experience, when I think about AI versus .com boom, if you guys remember pets.com 1999,
Yeah.
right? Right. So I mean, everything was like, everybody was on a hype.
Yeah.
We knew the internet was going to be there. Yes, it was going to be critical. I see the same thing, AI. But I think right now, there are only few people who can understand and use it. That's like, how do you really get this to mainstream? That is one of the challenges. And I'm just curious, like what type of company is really adopting this AI technology faster? Because when I look at my company and the people who should be using it and who can be, I just don't see there's a huge change management. It's going to take some time, seems like. What's your perspective?
Yeah. I'd say NetApp has been a challenging
Yes.
customer trying to acquire. So let's talk about this later. But yeah, for example, NetApp, I saw that it's been challenging just because like people still are a little afraid of what does it mean for like their own role, especially like depending on the team that you talk with. So like we still work with Fortune 500 company. So like one of the customer that you work with is like Liberty Mutual. It's a very large company, and we work with very small companies in San Francisco, like Brex or Harvey. And the difference, you can tell me, like one is 1,000 employees, the other one is 50,000. But like the key common point is at the leadership, they understood the power of the technology, and they are putting the effort to implement it. So we're going at the same speed with the Fortune 500 and with an SMB in tech because of like the mindset that is getting there. So that's for me like the only difference. The moment you have someone that is putting it as a mandate in the company, and then you allow everyone in you remove complex processes in place, then this has been happening. And then you have to listen not to McKinsey consultant, because they will just put slide and then you will not understand the use case, but to actually companies that are truly building, that will share with you use cases of how it works. So it's also a mindset shift of who will teach you the most. And it will be like the smaller startup that are doing this type of work.
I have a question as well, which is, I think the first order and obvious benefit of agents to most is just efficiency. I'm doing thing A, it costs me B. If I do it with a robot, I'm paying whatever compute costs and seat costs or whatever. If, especially in supply chain, the major theme is resiliency. That may not be first order analysis, an extremely attractive value proposition. The second order, which is probably more interesting, is around resiliency. If you have a human-centric process, right, that doesn't scale with demand, or that does not ride big dislocations between the amount of work you need to do and the amount of folks that you can hire, maybe that's a more interesting pitch, or something else, right? Like in my work, I see often agent adoption goes up when you move from just cut labor and cut expenses to add actual value or build real structural resiliency through market cycles. So what's the corollary for that here?
I think even for resilience, today I was just having a conversation with my boss, right? Is it working? Yeah. And he was asking me, what can we do so that when we get a huge order,
we are not scrambling, trying to figure out what is in our supply chain, what we can support, what we cannot support. Today, it's a nightmare. So if you get an order and let's say it's a big order, and the thing is that everything or a lot of things in the supply chain is maybe for NetApp, they are in Excel spreadsheets, right? Especially with your suppliers, right? Delivery timelines, commitments, and then you have to talk to procurement, you have to talk to supply planning, and you have to talk to factory. So it really becomes critical for someone to be able to organize them and say, here you go, this is what you can build, here's your capacity. This is what I recommend that you should be scheduling. This is how we should be scheduling supply and what have you. I mean, I'm thinking about this because today it's a big mess that AI could definitely offer some solutions.
And like to your point at the end, there are a lot of different ways to position it. It can be efficiency, it can be saving, it can be scalability. So it's truly about like who's the person on the other side that you're selling the product to. What do they care the most about? What's that metric? And it's positioning, building the right use case for it. So like resiliency is a key one. Like data triangulation. Can you take thousands of data points, understanding the pattern, simulating, and then proactively coming up with the insight? Is like a key point that is like an ideal use case for agents.
And it's also inferring from this, like it sounds as if the person who is moved by efficiency holds less power than the person who is moved by resiliency today. Right?
Yeah, but as you go up, then they care about both. So that's why, like, ideally you don't want to go to the person that's doing the operational work or the person that's managing that team because maybe they don't want to become an agent manager. But it's usually like as you go up, or like you need to truly understand what's the key metric they care about.
Okay, thank you, Hala. Marwan, we're talking about scaling and AI. What are the bottlenecks for scaling in a reverse supply chain? And is there room to use AI agents there as part of that scaling it? Or are you ultimately limited by the number of returns you get from customers?
We're taking baby steps on AI in my department. But as far as scaling, I think in general in supply chain, in my mind, I always use the 3 V's of supply chain. Anyone knows what the 3 V's of supply chain?
Velocity, volume.
Well, close. Yeah. Velocity, variability, and visibility. I think for me, visibility is most important. And as we have more and more warehouses across the globe, I want to know visibility of inventory that's being returned to those warehouses and how long, this is where we're talking about velocity, how long they're staying at that warehouse before they ship back to the factory. Because that inventory, that's also assets, that's money that could turn into revenue and cost recovery. And also variability in some cases where if you have little warehouses, you have small portions of computers coming back or iPhones or etc. So the variability of those returns also impact me from a capacity standpoint on how I need to plan the factory capacity. So with supply chain, the 3 V's are quite helpful for me on getting that visibility, controlling velocity, and making sure in every part of the supply chain in each region, there's accountability. By showing that visibility, there's accountability. You can control and potentially scale up. Yeah.
So good topic, visibility, Marwan. So right now, when we talked earlier about AI supply chain, one of the key constraints mentioned by Juneyt was memory. The other one is fab capacity. The third one goes back to visibility. It's something called T-glass. T-glass is a low coefficient of thermal expansion, basically, material that goes 8 levels down on the supply chain. So it goes into a free pack, which goes into a substrate, which goes into a package, which goes into the IC, which then gets bought by Jabil and Foxconn, goes into NetApp. So somebody like NetApp has to look at something happening 8 levels down in the supply chain to recognize one of the major constraints. By the way, every logic chip that's going to be advanced logic chip needs T-glass. 90% of T-glass is made by a company called Nitobo in Japan. They're constrained. Meta, NVIDIA, and Google have captured most of the supply through long-term agreement. Everybody else is left hanging. How do you gain that visibility so you can anticipate these issues ahead of time and recognize that, hey, I need to go do something, even though it's hidden deep in the supply chain, Juneyt?
Yeah, I mean, again, that's something that we learned.
That's something we learned painfully during the COVID, right? So, as I was talking about that 6% TI chip, we were not managing that. We were looking at the major items like cool items, CPUs, memories, and that was supposed to be managed by, Foxconn or Jabil. And then we found out that they don't have enough of that. Then we're like, oh, okay. If you don't have it, we can't ship it. It means that we have to do something about that, right? So one of the things, as I mentioned earlier, is really looking at the product, understanding what is in that bill of materials, making sure that you understand it so that BOM health management scoring is important. Making sure that, again, that's something that, as you look at that, you're choosing the components that have a big supplier base so that you're not relying on one or two suppliers, right? The other factor here is, the multi-sourcing, right? Making sure that you're able to get the products from different manufacturers to be able to manage that. Long-term agreements is another one, right? And I think those are kind of the things. And by the way, the other thing here is that there are three key elements here. One is the technology, how we start using technology. As Hala was saying, we are using technology more to understand what these components are and where they are manufactured, so that you can understand what is the exposure, because geopolitical environments changes and whatever. So there's a technology piece. There is a partner engagement piece. So you're working very closely with partners, Foxconn, Jabil. You connect to their ERP system. You understand their supply flow. So we built this ATP, available to promise, so we can see what is going through. And then, as Marwan was saying, visibility is super critical, right? So you always have to focus on these key items and keep an eye on that, right? Because, those small items that you don't expect, 85% of the time, by the way, it's not a tier 1. 85% of the time, it's a tier 3, tier 4 supply that hurts you.
So visibility depends on data. And AI models, complex AI models get built on data. Often enough, Juneyt was talking about spreadsheet and data everywhere. We get a lot of dirty data. How are you able to develop complex AI models, and how do you deal with this clean data depth and have successfully deploying models?
Yeah, like this has been one of the biggest misconception in terms of some companies don't want to start working with AI until they clean the data. But one of the big use case for AI is to help you actually clean the data in the first place. So usually, like right now, what's happening is when we connect to a system of record, the first thing that we do is we extract and we recreate a cleaner system of record based on all the issues that are happening, but it's impossible for you to manually fix. So if you need to consolidate vendors that they were named differently, if you need to look at different prices that were entered in the wrong way, but if you look at the actual agreement, you see the difference. There's a lot of way that AI can help you in recognizing issues automatically, and then you can have, like, when it's low confidence, someone just review it. But this is usually the first case where I usually tell people, if you don't have the data, no one has clean data. There is not one system. So at this point, just use AI to help you clean up the data, recreate this system of record, and then based on this, it's only at this moment in time where you can start to automate. So data really is key, but it should not be the reason why you don't even start working on projects.
Okay, thank you, Hala. So
we have a question.
I have a question actually for Marwan. You talked about the 14-day return. You talked about the 14-day return.
Yes.
Like every year I upgrade my phone.
Yeah.
And they buy it from me. So what do you do to those?
We also, so that's a different department, but I used to work in that department a long time ago. We also recycle them. We also, through the similar process. It depends. And for iPhone, you're talking about iPhone?
And Macs both.
Well, Mac is very different. Mac is 14 days, goes to the factory. For iPhone, it depends. It can go to a local warehouse where it gets screened and then it's sold. And this is where we control the quality. And it may get sold to distributors. But if it doesn't pass a certain spec, we send it back to the factory. So it's part of a recycling system, circular economy. Yeah. We also recycle this.
So Marwan, on the topic of quality, how do you ensure the product that you're refurbishing and recycling, even when it goes on the secondary market,
Yeah.
can uphold that quality standard that Apple works so hard to.
Right.
It's very proud of. Well,
Yes.
what are some of the things you do to make sure these products are indeed high quality?
Right. So for computers, for Mac, when we say, or even iPhones or other products, when we say it's certified pre-owned or refurbished, it goes back to the same factory that it was originally manufactured. So it goes through the same testing, same functional testing, robust testing. And then we also have that 1-year warranty, just like a brand new product. It goes exactly the same quality team, same standards. It's not a lower standard. A discount is just, it's because it's used a second time, but it's as if it's a brand new product. And whatever we say on the website is what we go by. Yeah. So same quality as brand new.
Different price.
However, in some cases, like for example, when you're saying there's other lines of business for iPhone, for example, where we screen, in some cases we screen locally in the US or in Europe, etc. But those we will not label those as refurbished or certified pre-owned. They would be sold as is products, and they are sold to distributors in a limited market to control the brand. Yeah.
Question for Marwan also.
Yeah, sure.
I was very curious about how do you determine what the cost should be after, for the refurbished component, for any refurbished.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
as Juneyt said, you really have to know the BOM.
Okay.
So BOM, understanding the BOM.
You want to just explain what BOM is?
Oh yeah.
Bill of materials.
Bill of materials. Yes. Sorry, bill of materials. Yeah, bill of materials. You really have to know the bill of materials, the negotiated value add, like the labor cost, and in some cases, because we are recovering most of the components of the product, you have to estimate out of the bill of materials which components are going to be replaced, what percentages, and usually we have historical data based on previous generation product where we can model. So, for example, you may like replacing an LC, replacing the screen or replacing top case. We have historical data that says, hey, this is how much you normally replace it. So we would plan for that for the cost. And then in a lot of cases, if the costs are not favorable, then we have to see how we could work with GSMs to reduce the cost of the product, the component, etc. Yeah.
I mean, to disassemble everything and to reassemble it alone is a cost, right?
It is.
So
In many cases, we don't.
Okay.
On the Mac, we only disassemble and assemble if a product has an issue. If it does not have an issue, what we call NTF, no trouble found, then it just goes through the functional testing and then gets packed out. If there's a scratch, then yes, we disassemble. But we don't disassemble to like each small component. Only specific components that have issues that we would replace with a brand new component.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I wanted to ask a question as I hear you talk about supply chain constraints and resiliency. I mean, an obvious question, probably a dumb question, but I'll ask it. Why don't these producers increase capacity? Bring up another line to manufacture whatever component? Open up a new mine.
I just asked that question to Raja.
If there's a demand, isn't that a good way to fix it? I know it's trivializing it, but I'd like to hear your insights.
So depends on the product, the service they provide. If it's a commodity product, it's an approach. If it's not a commodity, it's another approach. It really boils down to what the long-term prospects are. So if you're going to add a fab, that's a multi-billion-dollar, $20-30 billion, right? So TSMC would do it if they're convinced that there's going to be demand coming in. So it really boils down to ROI on the investment. And often enough, it's visibility 3-4 years out. It's not 6 months, 12 months. You need to have assurance that this AI is not a bubble, right? That's going to burst because at some point,
Yeah.
So that's on where there's value added. When it comes to commodity, it's a different game. When you look at the memory space, I work quite a bit with the Samsung and SK Hynix of the world and Western Digital. They want to invest. They are reluctant to invest because if there's constraint, prices go up. They make a lot I mean, that's when they make money. When there's enough capacity, prices will go down. It's a commodity. And in that case, they're going to negative profit. So there's a lot of gaming that goes on there. But at the same time, there's pressure on them to add capacity because their customers are getting angry with them. And if their competitors add capacity, then they lose. So they're always watching each other, and they play these games almost like a consortium, but not necessarily explicitly because it's illegal. But you can see those games are getting played out there.
That's a Venice Parliament.
So that's a very good question, right? And then to what you just kind of all of a sudden, Western Digital, Seagate, Micron, these were companies that were sold a product that was commoditized for a very long time, right? And all of a sudden, these stocks are like 1,000x, and so is that self-created by these companies, or was it that they not see this coming? Or I mean, it was very clear what the AI, revolution was going to do.
We went through one cycle during COVID, where prices went up and they added capacity, and then prices crashed until about a year ago. This is driven by AI, right? The HBM in particular, high bandwidth memory, which are using all these memory fab constraint capacity, are being sucked into this HBM because HBM is harder to build, lower yield, but it brings a lot more dollars. Now, they're not in a hurry to add capacity. That's the main issue, right? So it's not that they created the problem, but now that the demand is here, they're taking their sweet time to add that capacity because they're making money.
There's a pricing. The pricing
leverage is tremendous.
Yeah.
We're talking 2x, 3x.
I don't think it's ever been that way with any of these guys, right?
Nothing like this in the last.
Memory has historically seen a lot of these
busts and
burst cycle, these cycle where everything booms. So they've been through it, and the leadership has been around for a long time.
Right.
So they know how to maneuver through the cycle. But I don't think it's self-created, but they just try to milk it as long as they can.
And I think the question here is, how long is this going to last? Because, we're meeting with all these different industry analysts. I think the biggest thing here is when you look at the hyperscalers, Meta, Google, they used to invest like $150 billion. I'm talking about COVID time. During COVID, it went down and then it came back up to like $200 million a year, right? And people are like, yeah, that's fine because they're just offsetting. I think this year, the three are investing $650 billion.
Yeah.
It's huge. And the question is here, well, okay, so we know that AI has a future. But at the same time, what does it mean from the investment perspective? Because at one point, these guys will have to pay for the depreciation. It will reduce their earnings, profits, right? How is this going to play out when that happens? Are they going to keep on buying more infrastructure? Or are they going to say, okay, let's just slow this down, and then it will bring everything? I mean, that's something that you're trying to say. What is the time to continue building?
Another interesting topic on supply chain that's not talked about much right now, but it's becoming more real every day, is we were busy as a supply chain team here for the last 20 years making global supply chain, where everything's centralized. We had fabs in Taiwan, board assembly in places like China and so on. There's tremendous pressure right now to build two supply chains, one for China, one for outside China. And Taiwan is outside Taiwan as well, often, depending on the company. Some companies want to exclude Taiwan because they see it long-term as a risk. Some companies don't mind, they're just focused on China. How does that play for you? I mean, we went from global supply chain. So this is a different aspect of resiliency. We're going to be ending up having fragmented supply chain.
Flexibility, I think that's the name of the game now.
And this was, again, an interesting experience because China plus one, now they call that, right? China plus one. So it can be India, it can be Vietnam. For some countries like NetApp, it may be nearshoring, Mexico. Mexico is booming right now, guys. I mean, I was talking to some friends from KPMG. For every one factory that they have in Mexico in the free trade zone, they're building like 6 more, right? It's huge. And I think it's interesting because, I've been always in the hardware business, started with Silicon Graphics. And I thought at one point, because of the social media and everything, hardware was going to become extinct. Now, with this whole China thing, it's coming back. They're cool people again, right? And that's true. Like, no one talked about the supply chain before in the earnings calls, right? But now it was asking questions like, okay, do we have enough inventory? What's going on, right? We had to cool people again. So that's nice. Now, how do you build the flexibility? Because I mean, this is the thing. You have to really think about your network. China plus one is one thing. Making sure that you are qualifying double, triple, like especially for different commodities. We are qualifying so that we have flexibility. We can go and ask, okay, can you just meet this volume type of thing? The other thing that we do is that work with the contract manufacturers to move some of the production from one geo to another one, so you have redundancy. Resiliency is important. Sometimes you need to have two different distribution centers. Guys, one of the things we learned is tariffs engineering, right? So when you wake up in the morning and you say tweet, China there's 150%, you have to come up with a strategy about that, right? So in order to offset that, you have to think about what are some of the exceptions. One thing I found out is that this is really interesting. According to USMC, if, again, I'm not an expert, but as long as you add the software to the hardware in the US, you can claim that it's an American product, because they say that without the software, that hardware is like a doorstop. Yeah. Right? So anyway, so tariffs hedging is definitely one of that. I think you learn these kind of things, and we've been doing that definitely. And of course, being proactive, modeling this, we're looking, okay, so at what point does it make sense for us to really move let's say the production to the US? So at a certain point, if tariffs at a certain point, it doesn't make sense to do it in Mexico anymore. So you understand that and you plan accordingly, right? So I mean, those are kind of things that we're doing for flexible supply chain.
That was actually my question. It's sort of, I mean, I think post-COVID and now with what's going on with the Strait of Hormuz and stuff,
Yes.
so you'd want to diversify your sources.
Yes.
It's got to make it very expensive. And it really begs the question about whether it kind of takes away from globalization, I guess. If you think if you can bring it all back home
Yes.
and do it all here, but then your customers are all over. So it's got to be very expensive to have all this to meet the demand.
It is expensive. Definitely the costs have gone up. Again, I think it's, the customers also see what is coming into play. And, that's a good question. When we had the increase in the COVID time, we increased list prices, but with the discounts, everything came down. We're like, okay, so we're not going to get much, right? But now it's really a global thing, meaning that when we increase our price, our competitors are increasing the price and discounts are not bringing that down. So I think you're seeing customers understand the cost increase right now and not really reacting the way that they did during the COVID time, right? So they also see how the tariffs are playing into this equation and what have you.
Thank you, Juneyt. So Hala, I want to bring to you the topic of autonomous AI agent. The idea with autonomous AI agent that they make decisions. How do you make sure that they don't go wild and crazy? Meaning, sometimes they're making potentially tens of thousands of dollar decisions. And I think your goal would be to get into millions of dollar decisions. With this dependency on data, how do you control it? At what point do you recognize that you need to transfer the authority from the autonomous agent to a human, or maybe not? But how do you manage that risk that the autonomous agent will be spinning, making decisions that are either irresponsible? I mean, like when it comes to picking suppliers, maybe always be biased towards a particular supplier, breaking different rules, legal rules,
or even price fixing, illegal.
Yeah. So I would say you can think of it of like two big sections. Like the first one is like when you work on like an agent, you're gonna build a lot of instructions and a lot of rules that this agent should be following. And you can notice that it's like an iterative process. Even us, when we're building the agent, we start to understand which rules is the agent following, which rules is the agent not following. And there are different like tactics to build it in a way to make sure that the agent is following the rule. And then you always have like an escalation path that when this happens, always escalate. So the AI is always following at the end the instruction that you're giving it. So and it's not simple instruction. It's like very long instruction that you need to build in different way, that you need to inject at different moment in time. The second very big aspect is context. So when an agent hallucinates, it just doesn't have enough information to make the same decision that a human being would have done. If you give it the same information, it will do an equal, if not better, decision than a human being is doing. So a lot of the work that we do is around context. What is every single piece of information that this agent needs to know? And does it have access to this information at the moment when it's making the decision? When you have those two pieces in place, then the AI is actually very good at making decision, whether it's small decision or extremely complex one, because it can really take a lot of data into consideration when making this decision. And usually the best way to truly understand an agent is to read the logs, so to read the rationale behind it. So for us, for every agent that we build, there is Sheldon, but like behind the scene, there are several of them. We kind of read what did the agent think through it. And you can see for every turn, the agent is saying, okay, the person has asked me to do this. Let me look at the information I have in hand. Oh, I can see pricing. Let me look up at the pricing. Oh, I can actually see, I have a contract. Let me see at the contract. I actually see an email. Let me see what this person has said. Oh, there's also a meeting. And you can see the agent going through it. And when you read it, it makes a lot of sense in terms of how it's rationally processing the information.
Very good memory.
With infinite memory.
With
So
infinite memory,
it's
yeah.
actually extremely it's actually amazing and scary at the same time
is.
how smart the agent is and how fast those models are getting, which are powering those agents. So like those two pieces in place, you put it, and then I can sell you whatever you want. You're not going to trust me. So what happened with the company, they're like, great, I love Sheldon. I'm going to put someone to micromanage every single action. And what ends up happening is the first time, every time the agent wants to make a decision, there is a human that approves. Like Sheldon wants to send an email, that's a human that's saying like, yes, the email is good. Sheldon wants to create a purchase order, there is a human that's going to review it. Once you do this 100 times and all what you're doing is accept, then you tell me, look, it's good. Let Sheldon do it by its own. And then I only want to be involved if this situation happened. Mm-hmm. And this has been like a very common path. And it's truly amazing to see how powerful this technology is. And we're only at the beginning of it. So that's why I say it's powerful and scary, but the rules of the game have changed today. And they are here to stay because of the ROI doesn't make sense anymore in terms of how we used to do work and how we can actually do work today.
I have a question, guys. One thing I learned is that judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment, right? So what I'm wondering is that, with the AI, does AI have judgment? Like, it can react to something that's happened, but if it's totally new, can't react. I'm just curious.
Yeah. It actually can reason. That's why I say the moment you read the rationale of an agent, it's long. Like you can spend 20 minutes reading it. Once you read it, you can say it's actually thinking in the same way. If you have given me the same information, I would have thought in the same way in doing that. Then there is like learning loops. So next time, if the agent does it wrong, you can say, by the way, this was great, but next time I want you to do it this way. And then that's it. It's going to take that information and it's going to improve. So it's really compounding. It is compounding over time.
And it also remembers all kinds of, chats that you've got, it go back and say, remember we did, and when it says goodbye to you, it tells you, you're doing this and this and this, A1 and 2 and 3, and it's amazing.
So like one of the true power will be once you put the agent in autonomous, then you give it an objective, like let's say resilience. So you can say, I want you to always tell me when you think there is some risk. And the agent is 24/7, constantly crunching number, doing web research, looking at your information, and you're going to have insight in a way where you need to hire the whole planet to work on it to do it. So it is truly powerful. Not when you use it as a reactive, I'm going to go and ask a question as a copilot. When you put it in autonomous mode within the guardrail and it's actually doing work for you.
Thank you. So I have a couple more questions and we'll open up to the audience for more questions. Supply chain is at the heart of many corporations. Interact with finance, interact with procurement, interact with suppliers, interact with sales, interact with marketing, and so on. One of the key partners is engineering. So in your space, how do you make sure that products that are getting designed, they're going to become max 2 years from now, are easy to refurbish and reuse and recycle? Because if it's not designed properly,
they never keep us in mind. I'm kidding. So I'm gonna tie. Hala asked me a question earlier, and Randa asked me a question earlier. So I'm gonna tie both of their questions to the example I'm gonna give right now. So it's about ROI. You mentioned ROI before, like return on investment. It's always you want to go and get influence. You have to have the numbers ready. So I'm just gonna give a hypothetical example, but I've used a similar example like this before. So say I have a product that is going to cost me $100 to repair. I have this product is going to sell we're going to sell 7 million units of this product, 2% return rate. So that's 140,000 units that will come back to me for refurbishment. And I have to refurbish these at roughly $100 based on the bill of material cost, based on some attrition rates. And I'm going to say, you know what? I can save on every unit I refurbish, I can save $40 because the product is glued together. And because it's glued together, I have to take the enclosure out. The enclosure is going to be destroyed. And so I have to replace this enclosure. It's going to cost me $40 to replace this enclosure. So I can go to the engineering team and say, hey, why don't we redesign this? And if you redesign this to be more repairable, it's only going to cost, it's going to improve my cost. It's going to, instead of $100, I'm going to only pay $60. So I'm saving $40 for every system that I refurbish. And it only costs $1 to design everything, right? Do you think they're going to listen to me?
Yes. No.
Who said yes? $40 saving, right?
No.
No. What's your calculation?
What's the calculation?
Well, what's the calculation?
96% multiplied by $1.
No, so you have 7 million units, and I'm going to spend $1. So that's going to be $7 million for the life of that program. If I save $40 on 140,000 units, that's 5.6 million versus 7 million. If I just like share, hey, you know what? I'm saving $40 right here. It's a big number versus the $1. But hey, they can come back and tell me, hey, that $1 is for 7 million units, so it's not going to fly. So a lot of times, if I want to try to influence, I have to show the numbers and show the ROI. Yeah.
Thank you. So one of the interesting things with the advent of AI is supply chain groups have the choice between hiring supply chain experts or AI experts. Which one are more effective in supply chain? Do you take a supply chain expert, teach them AI, or do you take an AI expert and teach them supply chain? And which ones are easier to find right now? So, and that's a question to the three of you.
I think, it's really hard to say one or the other one, because the way I see is that, supply chain domain experts are like product managers and data scientists are the engineers, right? So you're going to need both of them to be successful. In terms of who can learn maybe the other way, Raja and I started a project. This was like 3-4 years ago. ML for SNOP. This was like, we're still trying to get, use out of that, because the person who is doing data scientist, it's really the focus of the person is the random forest models. It's not the business, but I'm like, no. The AI machine learning should be mimicking the business assumptions, business logic. It should not be based on some type of similar numbers type of thing. And again, it may be a personal type of thing, but the way I see is that nowadays, I think definitely the bar has been raised, especially with the AI, because I have friends who did not do even one line of coding, and they were able to use some AI applications to create some tools. I'm not saying it's not easy, but definitely you're seeing more, let's say, technology available to people to make the things easier, like creating applications. Like a lot, you hear that a lot of the entry-level software programming jobs are going to be transitioned to AI, right? So I think this whole AI thing tilted the balance a little bit more in favor of the supply chain domain experts. Of course, it takes some time to educate those, train those people. But I think it's more in favor of the people who have that domain expertise right now than, the other way around. My perspective.
No, I'd say if you know any good AI engineers, send them to me. Impossible to find. So it's definitely harder to find AI people that have expertise than any other domain. So like for me, the answer is very simple. There is this, like people usually say it's not AI that will take your job, it's the person that knows how to use AI that will take your job. And this is what's gonna happen. So supply chain expert, there's a lot of them. And at this point, you want to keep like the best one, and you want to keep the one that will, when I say use AI, I mean just speak in plain English, because we're not asking supply chain expert to train model. We're asking them to just chat with plain English with an agent or read in plain English a prompt. So for me, a lot of it is just a mindset shift. Are you open to work with this technology, or are you truly resisting? And the people that will be open to it are the one that's going to really differentiate compared to their colleagues.
I have a question. So where is the human component into these agents, right? So usually when you build your supplier base, you have kind of personal relationship. Sometimes they give you a favor. They're gonna make sure, I mean, if you really need a component and you're not finding it, they may find the solution for you. How can you integrate the automation mechanical aspect with the like human relationship aspect?
So I think the human relationship is very important. And the way I see it is, for all your key supplier, now your people are going to spend more time truly building this relationship as opposed to doing like all the automation job. Like for us, what we automate is the 75% of volume that is not strategic. And then the 20% that is truly strategic, you still have your team that is working on the relationship. And at this point, using the AI, like the agent, more as an assistant. So this is the key component that will never go away. And when I think about hiring now, you want to hire the people that are very good at like relationship, at empathy, that are curious. Like personality is becoming a very more important component than just expertise, because the AI can help you in becoming more expert in an area where you're not, but it cannot influence who you are as a person.
We'll have more time to do it, to socialize it.
Yeah.
I would just echo what Hala says. It's essentially, you want someone that is open to AI to help streamline any tactical activities that are mundane, things that you do on a weekly basis that you could just have AI do it for you. And then it helps with like being more focused on strategic initiatives.
And one thing that
I want to add, guys, if you look at all these technologies, whether internet, cloud, or AI, in the core of that, it's all about the speed.
Mm-hmm.
Speed is in the core. How fast can we do things? And the speed is just accelerating, especially with the AI right now.
So you heard us talk about how exciting supply chain is. I'll tell you a quick story to end this panel. I was presenting to a board of directors, and one of the board member comes, looks at me and says, and he's, by the way, an ex-supply chain executive, so he knew what he was talking about. He looks at me and says, supply chain people are stupid. And I'm like, I was taken aback, right? I mean, I just presented and things seem to be going great. And, I'm like, Bill, what do you mean? Why do you say that? He's like, listen, when the business is doing great, who's holding back the company? The supply chain. You can't ship enough, you can't build enough, you're not going to get your bonus. Well, when the business is going down, there's no profit. You're not going to get your bonus either. So that's why you're stupid.
You work in this field.
Actually,
and with that, I'd like to thank Marwan, Hala, and Juneyt for joining us.
Feel free to mingle a little bit more. We probably should get out of here by 8:15, just so the front desk. There's a bit of food. Hala, you didn't get dinner. Sorry.
I take some.
4 or 5 minutes.
I'll go get some.
I like your question. I was thinking the same. And no, there's a lot of art in the negotiation. How does it replace a human? في كتير كمان it's very systematic in terms of negotiation. And also the rules are not.
14-day return.